Camcorder Comics. Comic review for you. Hey man, Nicholas Villars here, aka Super Divorce. Welcome to Camcorder Comics, comic book review and discussion show program, recorded with a camcorder. Today we're going to be talking about Mortal Worlds from husband and wife creative team Michael and Caroline Anden. Also had a little help with coloring flats by Cheryl Rodriguez. Signed copy. Signed copy. Mortal Worlds. If you don't recall, Mortal Worlds was on Indiegogo a couple years back. Raised $3,443 by 81 backers. Finished up the campaign back on July 11th of 2020. And like I said, it was from Michael Anden and Caroline Anden. I remember seeing this, just browsing through all these campaigns a while back, and I was like, man, that color and the way it's artworked up looks fantastic. Reminded me of Tom Scioli's work on the Transformers G.I. Joe series for IDW, which is some of my favorite shit in comics ever. Michael Anden actually appeared on this channel. Black Coffee Comicsgate #1. No horse shit interview show where I talk to Comicsgate creators. Haven't done one in some time. I'd like to get back to it. But we had a great discussion. Talked for like 2 hours. You should go and listen to that. It's a great talk. Okay? Anyway, let's go back over to the book. What did I get with this campaign? I got two of my favorite pieces of merchandise that I've received from any Comicsgate creator, and that's just your Mortal Worlds comic book, and then this art book, which I think should be called a source book or a decoder ring for this right here. I'll get into that in a minute. But, you know, there weren't a bunch of different perks offered. It was pretty standard. But like I said, this is some of my favorite shit that I've received from Comicsgate. Just from a purely physical merchandise standpoint, listen to this floppity flop. Look, this hefty stock, this glossy paper. It's like magazine size. It's not dinky. There's a lot going on in here, so it's cool that it's a nice large print, because that allows you to see all the detail and things aren't too scrunched up as you go through it. But, you know, it's not like a National Enquirer or a Weekly World News. It's not that type of little floppy newspaper deal. This is like heavy-duty shit. It's awesome. It's just a delight and a treat to look through. Unfortunately, I didn't have that kind of experience when actually reading it for the first time, because the story is a little hard to follow, in my humble opinion. However, I was able to make pretty good sense of it by consulting this as I was reading the actual story. And also I listened to a different interview with Michael. I think it was on Michael Bancroft's channel. And he just went into some backstory, some of the characters' motivations, and was able to spill the beans on some things that helped connect some dots in the actual book for me that are not connected simply by reading it. And I think that's a problem, because it's cool that this exists and that I'm able to get answers, but it would be better if everything was just right here and I didn't have to flip back and forth to find certain things. And what do I mean by that? Well, look at this. This is not just an art book. It's not like you open it up and you've got like some sketches and a little something like that next to the sketch. This is more like a fan magazine that you would see for like Star Wars or Spider-Man or something at the grocery store, where you've got all these photos, you've got like interviews, and you've got breakdowns of the characters, and you've got information about the world where this takes place. I mean, that's what you get in this art book. And so that's why this is indispensable as far as I'm concerned. You need this to fully comprehend the story that's told in the comic itself. You also get stuff like this, where you've got characters and monsters shown that don't even appear in the Mortal Worlds issue that you're reading, but that exist in this world nonetheless. That shows you that Michael Andon has really put a lot of thought, time, and energy into constructing this world. And it's something he's been working on for over a decade. He's had these ideas. He's been putting these characters together in the story. I believe he said this is supposed to be part 1 of a 22-part series. And I hope that he's able to continue it, because after putting the pieces together, after doing the work to construct the story and get it straightened out in my mind, I really want to see what happens. It's a really cool sci-fi, fantasy, science fantasy type of deal. But again, as you can see as I'm flipping through here, there's just a lot included. And much of the information in this book is very important to understanding the story that's told in the pages of the actual issue itself. So what goes on in this issue? Well, you've got your good guys and your bad guys. Your good guys, they're a group called the Hold. The bad guys, that would be the Alderaan Global Defense Corps. The Hold, they are kind of like the Rebellion. You can think of it that way in Star Wars. The Alderaan Global Defense Corps, they're kind of like the Empire. On the outside, to people in this world, the Alderaan Global Defense Corps, they seem like the good guys. You know, they're the military, they're the government. But deep beneath the surface, at the Thalamus Sky Base, they're doing all sorts of arcane experiments and getting involved in the occult and trying to uncover secrets that human beings probably should not uncover. And the guy who kind of leads the charge for the Alderaan Global Defense Corps at Thalamus Sky Base is this fellow right here. His name is Director Dowson. And that rebel group, the Hold, they are fighting against the Alderaan Global Defense Corps to try and keep them from uncovering all these secrets, to keep them from getting too much power in their hands and destabilizing the world by revealing all these secrets that really are better, left alone. When the story begins, this character right here, who basically is like the main pro-tag throughout this story, his name is Cade Seiger. He's actually working for the Alderaan Global Defense Corps when the story starts off, for a very short time. I mean very short, for like the first couple pages, but then something happens, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he's like your big musclehead, meathead, sword-wielding badass. The other dude is, who might be considered like good guy number 2, your main anti-hero, is this guy. His name is Raken Shord, and he's a mysterious fellow. He works for the Hold. He doesn't know why exactly. He just feels like he's kind of on a mission from God. He has these impulses and these convictions to carry out these missions, but he doesn't know how he got involved. He doesn't know his past. He doesn't know much about himself. What he does know is he can't take this mask off. He doesn't know how it got stuck to him. He's got to keep it on, though. He's a great trader, not like a Benedict Arnold. I mean, like, he can trade goods. He's got a bit of a silver tongue. He can talk his way into procuring certain items and artifacts that he might need, so he doesn't have to go in guns blazing all the time. If he needs to, he is an excellent swordsman, and he's also a great pilot, though he doesn't know how he learned to fly his ship, the Star Striker. He's just intuitively able to do it. It's kind of like Rey from Star Wars, only not shit. So those are your two big heroes you got to pay attention to. This lady is Cara Flynn, and kind of her tag team partner, Vance Hillbrandt. These two are providing cover fire in the mission throughout the story, providing a lot of cover fire for Cade Seiger as he's trying to take care of business. These guys are kind of watching his back, helping him out. Kara is more line with, you know, your Ripley from Alien or Sarah Connor. She is a female badass, but she's not just like a male archetype repackaged as a female. She's well written. She's nuanced and complex. And this guy, who kind of looks like Robert Davies, I think is his name, the guy who played one of the Fratellis in Goonies with his nice hat, he's like a gunslinger, an armorer, all-around good guy. This is the Skull Bale. He is your main big monstrous bad guy in this story. You know, as I said, Dowson, the director of the Alderaan Global Defense Corps, he doesn't really get into much action. He's more of like an administrative dickhead, you know. He's more like a Grand Moff Tarkin, whereas this guy is more of the muscle. Over here we've got a character named Dargoth, who doesn't even appear in the pages of the book. The only way you can find out this character's name is Dargoth is by consulting the source book. And this is what I was talking about as far as finding things out via the source book that are not included, information that's not included by just reading the comic itself. I mean, you can see right here, that's the guy. He's wearing that mask. There he is, but you won't see him in there. If you read the description, you find out that this is a former intel officer who worked for the Alderaan Global Defense Corps, and he gets a hold of a particular artifact that kind of makes him go insane. He turns into a murderous, nihilistic psychopath that's just bent on the destruction of everything. He wants to annihilate existence itself. So, I mean, that's an interesting character and a formidable foe, but kind of intriguing. The only way you get that is by flipping through the supplemental material. Right here you have Jaina Seiger, that's Cade's wife, and with that, with the groundwork kind of set for us, I guess we can jump in and I'll try to explain to you what happens. Because the first time I read this, I had no clue. It was like I read through the entire book, but there was so much going on, so many characters, so much wild detail, so many questions I had. It was like when you get to the end of a page when you're reading a book and then you realize you don't know anything you just read. That was my experience of reading this for the first time. And you can see there's a lot packed in to these pages. You have to really kind of zero in, look at the details, and figure out what's going on. And what's going on here is that this guy, you see him running with all these explosions. That's Raken. Raken Shord is on a sabotage mission at Thalamus Skybase. And he's trying to sabotage the Skybase so that they stop doing these experiments, so they stop meddling around in things that they should not be meddling in. And you've got all these, you know, agents and soldiers from the Alderaan Global Defense Corps trying to track him down, trying to blast him up. Really, they want to take him prisoner so they can find out who he's working for and get all that kind of information. But they're giving him a good chase. And up in the sky, there's a bit of a dogfight happening. Some of Raken's allies are up there, taking care of business up in the heavens. And one of the people trying to stop Raken's allies is our main hero, Cade Seiger. I told you when this started off, he's working for the bad guys. He's kind of working for the Empire. He is on the side of the Alderaan Global Defense Corps. He ends up getting shot down in this dogfight, and someone from one of Raken's allies' ships beams down onto Cade's ship as it's crashing, and it looks like he might be about to finish him off. This guy in his sort of red jumpsuit Looks like he might be able to run Cade through and end him right here, but that's not what he does. He actually attaches a kind of glider to him and floats him down to safety. You'd think that'd be good news, but Director Dowson doesn't see it that way. He thinks this is very suspicious, and he actually wonders if maybe he was saved by this agent of the hold because they're working together. So Cade can't be trusted as far as the Outer and Global Defense Corps goes. Not in his old position anyway. What they do is they capture him, they strap him down to this table, and they're going to force him to take on a very deadly mission. What they want him to do is they want him to go into a realm called the Zone, where resides this mystical blade called the Claymore. And this Claymore has a couple interesting things about it. One, it is guarded by the main bad guy right here, the Skull Bale. He is always nearby the Claymore. And the Claymore is not only watched over by the Skull Bale, but it is also holding in place a dark deity called Zor. And if the blade is removed from its resting place, this dark deity will be released, and the Skull Bale will basically be tracking down whoever is in possession of the sword if it's taken from its resting spot. And that's what they want Cade to do, is go and get this sword and bring it back. They don't think he can even do it, but they're like, you know, we can't trust him in normal circumstances, but maybe if we tell him that we have his wife and his kid held hostage and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to him, he'll go and do his best to try and complete this mission for us. So that's what they get him to do. They get him in that spot, and he has no choice but to agree, to give it the old college try. Now, Raken escaped that big scrum at the beginning because his buddy, his robot buddy Vass, was able to open a wormhole that he jumps through, gets him to safety nearby their base of operations, if you will. And so he's kind of working with Vass for the majority of the book, trying to figure out how to get back to Thalamus Skybase and take care of business again. And he thinks that they should do it sooner rather than later because the people at Thalamus Skybase are not going to be expecting another strike so soon. That's why he's trying to regroup and get back there as quickly as possible. And that's kind of what they're going to be up to for the remainder of this story, the majority of it. As I said, they get Cade to go along with their plans, does Dowson, and remember Kara from the front? After that scrum at the beginning, and after Cade is taken by Dowson, arrested for all intents and purposes, Kara, did I call her Kate? Maybe I did. I meant Kara. Kara Flynn, she decides to break away from the Aldern Global Defense Corps as well. And she is going to go to Cade's residence, his apartment, and she goes there with the intention of evacuating his wife Jaina and his son Eldridge, this guy right here. However, when she arrives, Eldridge tells her that his mother has already been taken away. But she can still rescue Eldridge. So what they're going to do is they're going to work their way down through all these hidden levels of Thalamus Skybase, and they're going to try to rescue Cade and break him out. And hopefully they'll be able to rescue his mother as well. But that's what they're going to be working on as they, put themselves in harm's way, making their journey down into the depths and the bowels of Thalamus Skybase to wherever Cade is being held. Along the way, something interesting happens. They're going through some vents. Eldridge looks through this little window space, and he sees all these vats and people being held in vats. And in one of them is his mother, Jaina. Now this is important. what is she doing in there? She is about to be charged up. She's about to be given superpowers. In this world, there is a kind of energy field. I think they refer to it as the charge. And you can go through this process where you're basically tapped into it. And it's no small deal. It's a life-changing and sometimes catastrophic, sometimes traumatic experience to adjust to putting your body through that. So Eldridge is concerned for his mother, and he doesn't know, did she go here on her own? What's her angle? What's she doing down there? In any event, he remembers the rough time his father had getting acclimated to the new powers, because his father did go through this. That makes him what's called a slayer, and I guess his mom's going to become a slayer as well. Slayers go through this process. They receive superhuman strength, agility, speed, all that kind of shit. And that's part of and that plays into the plan of the Outer and Global Defense Corps when it comes to sending Cade into that zone realm to retrieve the Claymore. We'll talk more about that in a second. They finally make it all the way through level after level to where Cade is being held, Eldridge's father. And Kara, at this point, says that she's going to break away from Eldridge for a moment. She's going to go and meet up with Vance so they can come back guns a-blazing and hopefully provide some cover fire as Eldridge and Cade escape. And she tosses Eldridge this little doohickey, like a locket. I suppose it's got kind of a tracking device so she knows where to meet up with them. Cade enters the room where his father's being held, and you see these energy sparks start flying here, kind of like some lightning. Well, that's because Cade is getting so angry at the sight of his son that he can't be there with him to protect him. He's got to get out of this situation. And that's exactly what the Outer and Global Defense War was planning on. That was what Dawson wanted to have happen, is to raise his charge levels to astronomical, degrees, so that they would be able to take this energy and channel it in a way where they could rip open, I suppose, a pathway, a gateway to this alternate dimension called the Zone, where that Claymore is being held. And that's exactly what happens. So he gets so charged up that the gateway to the Zone opens, and he finds himself there in front of the Claymore. He goes to pick it up, and these guys appear. They look like the guys from the Hold. I don't know exactly what they're doing. They're there for a second, and then it seems like he makes some more progress, pulling the sword out inch by inch, and the Scryer, one of the two beings in charge of the Hold, zaps the hell out of him and sends him back into the laboratory where this experiment was being done. But also appearing with him is the Skullbale, who's speaking to Dawson, and it seems like they've spoken before, which is interesting. I don't know how Dawson was able to communicate with the Skullbale, if the Skullbale was in this alternate dimension called the Zone previously. We can just assume that there was some sort of, some sort of occult practice being done to where he could reach across this great expanse and communicate with the Skullbale. Anyway, the Skullbale is in our reality, and Cade is not very happy about it. He's like, look, you brought me back here. Now this guy is on me. You need to get him off, get him out of my face so I can jump back into the Zone and try and retrieve this Claymore sword for you. So he jumps back into the Zone. I'm not sure how that works. He doesn't need to be charged up and sent back. I don't know if once you go there, it's kind of volitional and you can just jump back and forth after that. But anyway, he guts it out. He climbs his way to the top of the mountain where the sword is being held, and this time he's able to pull it out. No problems. I suppose that once the skull bale has been released, maybe that changed the scryer's mind, and the hold takes a different view of it. Maybe they think this sword needs to be taken back into the other world so that the skull bale can be stopped. That's not really laid out in detail, so you're just kind of left to put the pieces together for yourself. Cade joins the battle that Kara and Vance are having versus the skull bale, because they've been trying to keep him distracted and get him away from Cade. And this right here is one of my favorite panels in the book, because there's a lot of color. There's a lot of mix of different colors, and sometimes things tend to bleed together a little bit. I love the stark contrast. This panel punches me in the face the way the skull bale is punching Cade in the face. I would like to see more of that maybe next time, because you still get all of this fantastic variation in color between the two characters, but then they're placed against a backdrop that really makes them pop out. So that's cool. You get lots of action here, fantastic action sequences going on as you go and go and go. They're all fighting. Big time action sequence. Goes on for several pages. They finally are able to get the skull bale the hell out of the Thalamus sky base by blasting him with this big ass laser. They shoot him all the way across the sky here, and he, you can see this is quite a distance. There's the sky base where he's originating from, and vroom, zoopity zap, all the way across this maybe like a lake or something, and then he lands in this city over here. So they're able to get a moment to take a breather. And when he lands, he sees Aldrin Global Defense Corps ships flying around and just decides to start blasting through those. He doesn't even care who he's taken out. He just wants to fight. He's got rage on his mind. And as I mentioned, Vass and Raken, they're still making their way over to Thalamus Sky Base. The next big event that happens, Cade is finally able to meet up with his wife, Jaina. However, she has turned heel, and she has joined the evil forces of Dowson's army. She's gone that way. She wants the sword from him. She wants Cade to give up the sword. And she is going to leverage their son against him. She's like, if you want to see Eldridge again, then you're going to give me that sword. And so that's how far gone she is. She doesn't even care about her own son anymore. She just wants this damn sword for her masters. And Cade, he's a good guy. He gives it up. And then Jaina tosses it over to this fellow. And I figured out who he is. I figured out that this must be Dargoth. And, what makes me say that? Well, in the source book, it talks about how Dargoth touched the claymore, and that's what made him go crazy, basically. And the only other characters to hold the claymore in this entire story here were Jaina and Cade. He's the only other person who touches it. So that's why I think Dargoth was included on the front cover. It wasn't necessarily telling you that this guy in this getup was going to be in the story, but the man behind the mask is in it. And I believe his name is Garrett. Pretty sure that's who Garrett is. So fight breaks out between the AGDC and our good guys. And then right before Cade is able to grab the sword back, the bad guys are all evacuated via a sort of, teleportation. They're taken to the bad guys' stronghold, and the sword gets away. But the hold superiors, the Scryer and House and Archard, the people in charge of the resistance or the rebel group, they're not too concerned. House and Archard believes that the sword is actually right where they want it to be. They're still going to be able to retrieve it even though Cade doesn't have control of it at the moment. So I suppose that'll be explored in the next book. Now, last page, you've got Cade, Kara, and Vance. And they're waiting at the top of the sky base, and the elevator's coming up, and Kara hears the beeping of that locket that she gave to Eldridge. Only when the character appears, it's not Eldridge. It is, it's Raken. Eldridge is gone. When Cade was zapped over into the zone to get the Claymore, Eldridge disappeared, and no one knows where he went. That's a mystery. Here's where the bad guys all zap themselves over to. They're hanging out at their bad guy base. The way this ends is pretty strange. So, the Skull Bale's text is typically against a red backdrop throughout. So you've got the Skull Bale in the sky, and he says, "Siger, I am Zor. Behold my power, then hold the gaze of your distracted savior, where buried deep lie future truths past." So, this is Zor now. In this panel, you find out that one of these guys who has appeared back at the base was just piloting this suit, but his piloting days are done. He can take the suit, and now Zor has control of it, since Zor has been released. Now Zor has put himself inside of the suit somehow, and here's the strange twist. Zor says, "This is the point you realize that you became me." And he's talking to Siger. So I don't know if this is supposed to, be saying that Siger becomes Zor, or Siger is Zor. There are a lot of questions that still remain, but I was at least able to make that much sense of the story. And I mean, I could probably make a 3-hour video talking about it if I went through every single detail and every single panel, but I tried to condense it the best I could. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and if you can, check out this book. Maybe you can track down a copy on eBay, and make sure to support Michael next time he does another campaign. That's Mortal Worlds. This is Camcorder Comics. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take real good care, keep kicking ass, love you lots. Bye-bye.